the workshop for a change. I say for a change because I've been absolutely bonkers busy doing a lot of drawing and stuff like that, and normal day-to-day work. So I'm going to do a little bit of an update stroke moan about myself. And I say moan about myself because I've made a few stupid mistakes recently, which I'm going to go through with you. One of them is this bit. See that? That is that reverser bulge. Fits on the front of the cab. And I did a right nice little bit of soldering job and got that nice curve in there. I did another fancy little soldering job and got there's a bit of angle that sits around the bottom of it, and soldered that up, so it looks all nice and neat around the bottom of it and looks like full size. Only to find out after the fact, after I ordered it, soldered it all together, that the distance for that, and say the distance is what I mean is the distance that sticks out, I did not take into account that little hole that I was talking to you about, and I stupidly took some measurements from the Dick Stockings drawings instead of just using my noggin and doing it what I saw in my CAD drawing, in my CAD work. I married up the bolt hole, which is actually one of these is the bolt hole into that reverser pedestal. One of these little holes here. I married those holes up with the holes are in the bracket that the reverser pedestal stands on, as opposed to about a quarter of an inch further back. So essentially that has gone a quarter of an inch too deep there. So I thought, oh well, not to worry. That hasn't cost me that much to have laser cut. I'll have another one, I'll redraw it, I'll have another one laser cut. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a picture of that particular part. It's something I've drawn today, because, like I've said to you before, or in the last video, I've been doing a lot of emailing to and froing with Doug Hewson, and I've given him a lot of information and he's given me a lot of information, and it's impacted what I'm doing massively. Not that I've done anything wrong, because I'm still copying the works drawings. It's what it's allowed me to do is to check things before I go to the next step. So I've kind of shot a long way forward in what I'm drawing, even though this is nowhere near needing those things. But the impact of it is that it does need certain things taken into account. So before I go into in depth of what me and Doug have been to and froing, you remember I showed you these last time. They are the first set of horn guides for the engine. Now this one, you can see there's some score lines in the back of it. And what I've been doing, it was because there was a comment going, oh, you can use the holes in your frames, reference it off the back of them and probably get your holes where you need them to be. And what I've ended up doing, I've ended up sending off for a drilling jig, because, and I'll put a photo on, I'm going to show you, there's some red dots in the frames. I'm going to put a picture on of it now. Those red dots are where the holes should be in my frames. Now I say should be, and you think, well, you've ruined your frames because you've had the laser cut holes put in it. Again, what happened was, and I know I shouldn't do it, and I keep bloody doing it, and I don't know why. I think it's because it's my only reference point. So with Doug Hewson, his only reference point for certain things on the class 2 that in 5-inch gauge is a Don Young version. I think it's Don Young. Anyway, someone had done a 5-inch gauge version. Limited detail, not very accurate. he's gone about it, took it upon himself to redraw the whole engine and get it absolutely true to scale in every way, shape and form, including a rocking grate. Now, I know a lot of people will go, a rocking grate is not going to work in miniature. Doug Hewson will beg to differ with that, and he would probably argue with you until the sun went down. And I would agree with him over anybody else, because he's proved that it works. He's proved that it works on a standard class 4 in 5-inch gauge. So scaling it up to 7.25, you're not scaling heat, you're not scaling steam or anything like that. But if you can make it work in miniature, i.e. smaller than what I'm doing, you can make it work in 7.25. So this engine now is going to have a rocking grate and a hopper ash pan, exactly like full size. It's all going to work. We've both come to the realisation. I used Doug as a massive influence on my first class 2, because his standard 4 was in its infancy. It was being built, it was being written up in engineering in miniature, and I took big influence from it, because I thought if you can put that much detail in an engine that small, when you go up a bit, and it is only a bit, you can add the detail in. Working detail, not just details of, oh well, that's, you know, the vacuum equipment that's on the side of it and stuff like that, and the vacuum ejector on the side, and you know, it looks scale but it actually has got a hidden PNP ejector somewhere else. The vacuum ejector, everything on Doug's engine works as it should, including the slacking controls, the slacking pipe for the washing down the coal and washing down the dust on the footplate. It all works. So I take big inspiration from that, because if he can do it in 5-inch, then I can do it in 7.25. I know his skill is way beyond mine, but I do that, like I've said many moons ago. What if I can make that work? What if I could try and make it? What if I can visualize it in my head and draw it, and you know, and go from there? So I take Doug's input as a massive influence. So I've helped him out with a lot of drawings, I've helped him out with a lot of photographs, because he's not in his health isn't as good as it was 10 years ago. So he can't clamber over engines and take pictures and measurements and stuff like that, but I can. So I've got a lot of photographs, a lot of archive photographs. I send them, he'll send me a PDF of something he's drawn, and I'll scale up what he's drawn to my scale and shovel things about and make sure everything's working and everything's right. So I'm going to put on another bit now, another picture, and this is what I've drawn today, and it shows in the magenta colour, it shows the start of the reversing gear. Now the reverser, as I said in the previous video, the one that's drawn on a Dick Stockings drawing isn't correct. It's a dead straight screw reverser. The standard 2s had a bevel gear, 90-degree angle reverser. Works completely different. So I took what Doug's got measurement wise, drew it up, scaled it up into 7.25, plonked it on top of where the reverser stand is, at the pedestal, sorry, to work out where that should be and what size it should be, because I took reference for the sizes for that from the Dick Stockings drawings, and I shouldn't, and I need to stop doing it. I did exactly the same with these, and that's why you've seen that picture. The red dots for those is where I've got to shove rivets outwards. Now, I don't know what made me think of it at the time. I think it was just because I was trying to work out where things were going to be, what sort of distances and measurements and all the rest of it with that. And then I thought, well, hang on a sec, there's a row of rivets that are too close to the edge and they're going to impede in here. And that's exactly what's happened. So I've got to shove the rivet holes, the red dots, are where it's going to be. So I'm going to plug up all those holes that are already been laser cut. And I've got a drilling jig coming from Ed that I'll be able to place onto the frames, clamp it in place, and drill through. I could, in fact, plonk it on there first, drill those and use those as the guide, which I might do, which is what I did with the tender. So the frames will at some point in the near future going to get stripped down so I can do that. I've got a bit more machining to do on the other horn guides, which is what I've been doing tonight, is buggering about with cast iron. So there's one thing I've got to rectify, is those holes, but I'm not going to be able to do that until the frames are apart. And then the other one is this. So the magenta lines in that drawing, I'll just put it on again now. The magenta lines in that drawing are where the size, it's the size of the actual reverser. So if you have a proper look at that now. So you can see the in front of the magenta colour is the pedestal, the bulge. Here it is in place. You can see it's covering exactly where I need to bolt it to. That hole there is where it's fixed down, and it's not going to work at all. There's the fall plates I was talking about. That's a little bit stiffer with the paint, that one isn't, but it'll free up eventually. Then underneath that, the drag box, rubbing plates, up into the cab, all looking sweet as a nut. So there we are, all up to date with the update of what I've got going on. I hope you like the back end of the engine with the full plates on. One of them being a little bit stickier than the other, and it's only paint that's making it sticking from dropping down. They're a lot lower when they're pushed down like that. They're a lot lower down than when they need to be. They'll actually sit up a little bit, and you'll see the curve in them where it's going to sit on the tender. At some point, as I say, at some point I'm going to strip the frames down and start doing the horn guides and getting the holes in the correct place, plugging up all those first. The centre set, the driving set, sweet, don't need to worry about those because it's a different measurement to the first row of rivets, and because there's a different measurement, obviously when the horn guides are machined up, they'll slide in, those holes will go straight in it, and leave me enough clearance on the actual casting. So that will get them up to date. Some other things I've got to take into account when the frames are apart is drilling for little brackets for oil pipes and stuff. I found a picture, I think it was in the Loughborough group, the GCR shed group, and it had the picture of the frames of one of their standard 2s, and I saw a lot of pipe work in there and where the pipes go to and stuff, and I thought, brilliant, I can take that. Even though I'm nowhere near doing pipes or anything, it's something I have to take into account, is putting brackets in, because there's going to be nothing worse than trying to get a hole drilled somewhere and tapped when the frames are assembled. So you have to take that so you jump in, like I said earlier, jumping way ahead for something, you know, that you don't need yet. You're jumping way ahead to get those details in, and then when the frames go apart, I can have those holes drilled and I can do the brackets and piping at a later date. At least the holes are there and tapped and sorted, and then I can come back to it. Same as like putting the builder's plates on the front end. Drill and tap the holes, ready for it. Won't need to fit them until the engines are pretty much painted and finished and done. So, but there we are. Thank you ever so much for watching. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you for people that have liked, shared, commented. It it does inspire me to keep going and to keep plodding on, because people are liking the content. And having Doug now to and fro in emails is fantastic for this, because it's spurring me on a bit more. It gives me that push to go, right, let's get another bit done, let's get another bit done. I just need my airport work to steady down just a fraction to give me a bit of time in the workshop. Once that happens, we're bang on again. But I can't really see that happening now until winter. So, and then the stove will have to get lit and we'll be back in the element. But anyway, thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully not in a million days time, you know, it'll be a bit closer. Thank you ever so much.